Mahatma Gandhi's way of living is the best example of sustainable development for world. In Mahatma Gandhi's words, earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not any man's greed. Hi, my name is Dr. Shruti Sharma, and on the occasion of Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary, let's look at simplifying sustainable development goals. The SDGs are a collection of 17 interlinked global goals to transform our world. They were designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all, and part of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They were agreed by 193 countries in September 2015. Each of the 17 goals strive for the universal reduction of climate change and poverty and the improvement of education, health, and economic growth. United Nations describes the SDGs as seeking to protect the planet and improve the lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere. The SDGs provide worldwide guidance for addressing each of these goals. Crises within the SDGs are faced by most countries and can only be addressed if we work as one global community. The SDGs built upon the earlier Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, which were in place from 2000 to 2015. While the MDGs primarily focused on poverty reduction, the SDGs are more comprehensive, covering a wider range of issues. The development of the SDGs involved an extensive consultative processes that engaged governments, civil society organizations, businesses, and academia from around the world. This process ensured that the goals were reflective of the global priorities and concerns. In September 2015, all 193 member states of the United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which included the 17 SDGs and 169 targets. Each member state committed to working towards achieving these goals by 2030. There are 5 pillars of sustainable development goals. The first is people. People to end poverty in all forms and ensure dignity and quality for people. Second is planet. Protect our planet's natural resources and climate for future generations. Third pillar is prosperity. Ensure prosperous and fulfilling lives in harmony with nature. Fourth stands for peace. Foster peaceful, just, and inclusive society. And the last pillar of SDGs is partnership. Implement the agenda through a solid global partnership. Each of the 169 targets has one or more indicators to measure progress on that target. The total number of indicators is 230. Sustainable Development Goal number 1 is no poverty, which means end poverty in all its forms everywhere. There are significant challenges on meeting this goal. We are on track though on maintaining the SDG achievement. Indicators to this goal is poverty headcount ratio at $2.15 per day. Sustainable Development Goal number 2 is to end hunger, which means to achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. Our score for this is stagnating or increasing at less than 50% of required rate. The indicators for SDG are prevalence of undernourishment, prevalence of stunting in children under 5 years of age, prevalence of wasting in children under 5 years of age, human trophic level, cereal yield, sustainable nitrogen management index, exports of hazardous pesticides. Sustainable Development Goal number 3 is to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being at all ages. Now, major challenges remain for India in this SDG. We score moderately, improving insufficient to attain goal. Now, indicators for this SDG are maternal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate, under 5 incidence of tuberculosis, new HIV infections, AIDS standardized death rate due to cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, or chronic respiratory disease in adults aged 30 to 70 years, AIDS standardized death rate attributable to household air pollution and ambient air pollution, traffic deaths, life expectancy at birth, adolescent fertility rate, surviving infants who received WHO recommended vaccines, universal health coverage UHC index of service coverage, and subjective well-being. SDG 4 is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Now, thankfully, our score here is moderately improving. Still, it's insufficient to attain goals. Now, indicators for SDG 4 is participation rate in pre-primary organized learning, net primary enrollment rate, lower secondary completion rate, literacy rate. SDG 5 is to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. There are major challenges for India in achieving this goal. Now, indicators to achieve this goal is demand for family planning satisfied by modern methods, ratio of female to male mean years of education received, ratio of female to male labor force participation rates, seats held by women in national parliament. SDG 6 is clean water and sanitation. It is to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all major challenges remain although for this SDG. Now, indicators for this SDG is population using at least basic drinking water services, population using at least basic sanitation services, fresh water withdrawal, anthropogenic wastewater that receives treatment, scarce water consumption embodied in imports. Then SDG 7, which is affordable and clean energy. Now, this is to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy to all. Now, for our score in SDG 7 is moderately improving. Still, it's insufficient to attain goal. Now, the indicators for this is population with access to electricity, population with access to clean fuels and technology for cooking, carbon dioxide emissions from fuel combustion per total electricity output, renewable energy share in total final energy consumption. Sustainable Development Goal 8 talks about decent work and economic growth, promote sustained, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment and decent work for all. Now, again, for India, there are significant challenges in achieving this goal. Now, indicators for the SDG are adjusted GDP growth, victims of modern slavery, adults with an account at a bank or other financial institution or with a mobile money service provider, unemployment rate, fundamental labor rights are effectively guaranteed, fatal work-related accidents embodied in imports, victims of modern slavery embodied in imports. SDG 9, Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure. This SDG is to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization and foster innovation. Again, for India, there are major challenges remain in this sector, though the goal is moderately improving. Now, indicators for this SDG is rural population with access to all season roads, population using the internet, mobile broadband subscription, logistic performance index, quality of trade and transport related infrastructure. SDG 10 is about reduced inequalities. It stands for reducing inequality within and among countries. Again, for India, there are significant challenges in achieving this goal. Our score is decreasing in this. The indicator is Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient measures the extent to which the distribution of income among individuals or households within an economy deviates from a perfectly equal distribution. The long-term objective for this indicator is a value of 27.5. The second indicator is Palma ratio, the share of all income received by the 10% people with highest disposable income divided by the share of all income received by the 40% people with the lowest disposable income. The long-term objective for this indicator is a value of 0.9. SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. It leads to making cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Again, for India, there are major challenges. The score is stagnating or increasing at less than 50% of the required rate. The indicators to the same are proportion of urban population living in slums, annual mean concentration of particulate matter of less than 2.5 microns in diameter, access to improved water source, piped sanitation with public transport, and many more. Responsible consumption and production. SDG 12. It ensures sustainable consumption and production patterns. We are on track of maintaining SDG achievement in this goal. The indicators are municipal solid waste, electronic waste, production-based SO2 emission, SO2 emissions embodied in imports, production-based nitrogen emissions embodied in imports, exports of plastic waste. Sustainable Development Goal number 13, climate action. Now, this goal ensures to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Now, this SDG, we have achieved the SDG, though the increase is less than 50% of the required rate. Now, it requires us to take urgent action to take climate change and its impacts. The indicators of SDG are CO2 emission from fossil fuel consumption and cement production per capita, CO2 emissions embodied in imports, CO2 emissions embodied in fossil fuel exports, kilogram per capita. SDG 14, Life Below Water. This SDG stands to conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and marine resources for sustainable development. Now, there are major challenges in this SDG, and the score is moderately improving. The indicators to the same are mean area that is protected in marine sites important to biodiversity, ocean health index, clean water score, fish caught from overexploited or collapsed stock, fish caught by trawling or dredging, marine biodiversity threats embodied in imports. SDG 15, which talks about life on land. It ensures, protect and restore and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem, sustainably manage forest, combat desertification, and halt and reverse land degradation and biodiversity loss. Now, again in India, there are major challenges in achieving this goal. The indicators for this goal is mean area that is protected in terrestrial sites important to biodiversity, mean area that is protected in freshwater sites important to biodiversity, red list index of species survival, permanent deforestation, terrestrial and freshwater biodiversity threats embodied in imports. Sustainable Development Goal 16, Peace, Justice and Strong Institutions. This goal ensures to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. Now, again, for India, there are major challenges remain achieving these goals. Now, this goal is required to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. The indicators for this goal is homicides, unsentenced detainees, population who feels safe walking alone at night in the city or area where they live, birth registrations with civil authority, corruption perception index, children involved in child labor, export of major conventional weapons, press freedom index, access to and affordability of justice, timelines of administrative proceedings, expropriations are lawful and adequately compensation. Our last SDG, SDG 17, which stands for Partnership for the Goals. This is ensured by strengthening the means of implementation and revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development. Again, there are significant challenges for India in achieving this goal. Though the score is moderately improving, but it is insufficient to attain the goal. Now, the indicators for the same are government spending on health and education for high income and all OECD's countries, international concessional public finance, including official development assistance. For other countries, government revenue, excluding grants, corporate tax haven score, statistical performance index. The SDGs have a 2030 deadline for implementation. In 2019, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a decade of action across three essential areas: global action, calling for bold leadership; local action, to make a real difference in people's lives; and people action, to mobilize partnership, hold leaders to account, and for people to make the global goals to their own. However, the COVID-19 has slowed progress dramatically for many of the SDGs, heightening the need for their implementation now more than ever. In conclusion, the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals is not just a moral imperative, it's a practical necessity. We cannot afford to ignore the pressing issues of our time. It requires the collective will and efforts of governments, business, and civil society and individuals. Let us remember that the SDGs are not just about improving the lives of those currently living, but also about ensuring a better future for generations to come. Together, we can make progress on these goals, and by doing so, we can create a world that is more equitable, prosperous, and sustainable for all. Thank you.